Well, hello and welcome. I'm Miss Heard with Miss Heard Song Lyrics Podcast. We are at Season 5, Episode 211, doing our first ever Rick Springfield Miss Heard Song Lyric. The Miss Heard lyric is, "You're seeing some slick talking mental dude." And the correct lyrics is actually, "You're seeing some slick continental dude." That's a great line in that song. We're going to go into Don't Talk to Strangers. That's what we're talking about today, along with a little more about who Rick Springfield is, if that's really his name, and his connection to Little River Band and other connections I had no idea about until I did this research. So let's begin. Well, first of all, before I go into this, I have to say and give a shout out to my BFF Heidi. Heidi is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Rick Springfield fan in the world. So I'm just going to throw it out there. In fact, gosh, 4 or 5 years ago? I can't remember now. Maybe back in 2020, 2019. It was before COVID for sure. I actually made us matching dresses with another friend of mine. So there's 3 of us, just picture that. And I made a dress all with Rick Springfield's beautiful mug on it, all over it when he's wearing his pink suit. And it caused quite a commotion at the local theater that we were at. In fact, many Rick Springfield fans wanted to purchase the dresses off of us. And we said no, because we can't sell it. It's copyrighted. And it was so popular, we think, or I think, at least I think, and Heidi agrees, that because we were all the way in the 9th row, so not even the first, not second, third, it made him come to us to the 9th row. Not only did he come to sing to us with his guitar, he jumped on our seats and all that. So I think someone from his crew probably said, hey, there's these 3 ladies that are wearing these unique matching dresses with your face on it, and he had to probably see it for himself. So I saw the dress, so does she. We hope to go to another upcoming Rick Springfield show. Hopefully he'll come back to the Pacific Northwest, which is where we're located in the left-hand corner of the United States for those listeners listening outside of the United States. And hopefully we will see him again. But I digress. Let's talk about Don't Talk to Strangers. So as you know already, if you haven't figured out, it's a song written and performed by Australian musician Rick Springfield. I always forget he's Australian because you don't hear the accent as much. This song was released back in 1982. From the album Success Hasn't Swallowed Me Yet. I like the yet. It reached number 2 on the U.S. States Billboard Hot 100 for 4 weeks, making it its biggest, or his second biggest hit in the U.S. after the number 1 hit, Jesse's Girl. It was kept off the top spot by, get this, Ebony and Ivory by Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder. Remember that song? Ebony and Ivory. It's a good song, but I did not realize that's what kept it from the top spot. Then he was actually nominated, Mr. Springfield, for a Grammy Award for Best Male Pop Vocal Performance with that song in 1983. So a lot of great things. First of all, what does it mean? If you can't figure it out from just the lyrics or the video, which we'll talk about in a bit, so keep a pin on that. The song was written to Springfield's then girlfriend, Barbara Porter, who later became his wife, Lucky Lady, whom he was worried was involved with other people while they were apart, so when he was touring. Springfield recalled, quote unquote, "Back then I was scared that she was screwing, aka effing, around because I was doing the same thing." Oh, yikes. So he was not also an angel during his travels. So there you go. Who is Rick Springfield? Was he born with that name? Actually, no. His real name is Richard Louis Springthorpe. So the Rick comes from that, and then changed from Springthorpe to Springfield. He was born on August 23rd, 1949, so I had a birthday just last month. Known professionally as Rick Springfield, like I said earlier, Australian-American musician and actor. We'll talk about his acting in a bit. But here's something new I did not know. So he was a member of a pop rock group back in 1969 to 1971 called Zoot, Z-O-O-T. Then he started his solo career with his debut single, Speak to the Sky, which then reached the top 10 in Australia back in mid of 1972. But I want to know, who is Zoot? Because when I think of that, the first thing I think is a Zoot suit, you know. Zoot was a pop rock band formed in Adelaide, South Australia back in 1964 as Down the Line. And then they changed it to Zoot in 1967, and by 1968 had relocated to Melbourne. They actually had top 5 hit on the Go Set National Singles Chart with a heavy rock cover of the Beatles ballad called Eleanor Rigby, we know that, released in 1970, but they disbanded in May of 71. Here's where it gets interesting. So mainstay bass guitarist B. Birtles was later a founder of the Little River Band. So I love Little River Band. I think I also did a misheard song like many episodes ago, but that's what spawned from Zoot in 1975. That's when he founded Little River Band. And then their guitarist, singer, songwriter, Rick Springfield of Zoot, obviously we know the story. He moved to the U.S. in 1972 and then achieved international fame as solo artist, songwriter, and actor. And then, I didn't know this, Zoot actually reunited for the Rick Springfield and Friends cruise back in November of 2011, so about 12 years ago. I wish I would have known about that. I probably would have gone on that cruise. Anyway, let's talk more about Rick Springfield. So he leaves Zoot, he moves to the U.S., many, great startups, does well, and then really hits it big with his #1 hit with Jesse's Girl in 1981, both in Australia and the U.S., and he received the Grammy Award for the Best Male Rock Vocal Performance for that, so got his Grammy. He then followed with 4 more top 10 U.S. hits. One, I've Done Everything for You, Don't Talk to Strangers, the song we're talking about today, Affair of the Heart, and Love Somebody. And again, the misheard song lyric, it does sound like he's saying some slick talking mental dude, but it's really slick continental dude, okay? So, does well. He has 2 U.S. top albums, 10 albums. One is Working Class Dog in 1981, cute little photo album cover, so check it out if you haven't seen it. And then the second album called Success Hasn't Spoiled Me Yet in 1982. Then as an actor, so he actually started in a movie called Hard to Hold in 1984. We'll go into that in a bit, but he was also in a lot of television series. He was one that was well known, which was he played Dr. Noah Drake in the daytime day drama General Hospital. So he was there from 1981 to 83, came back in 2005 and did for 3 years to 2008 and did 2012. And then he actually returned in 2013 for the show's 50th anniversary with his son, actor Liam Springthorpe. So his son kept the actual real family name. And then he was also in Californication in 2009. He also penned his own autobiography called Late, Late at Night, a memoir. And then I remember he was also in one of my favorite shows, American Horror Story. In 2017, he played a Pastor Charles in an episode entitled Winter of Our Discontent. And I remember seeing that and I thought, oh my God, it's Rick Springfield. And he's this quirky, creepy pastor. So if you haven't seen it, watch it. So let's talk about his personal life. There's some heavy stuff here and stuff we do want to talk about because it's a lot of that going on. So when he was 17, he actually tried to attempt to commit suicide by hanging himself. He is quoted to say, I hang suspended for 15 or 20 seconds. I'm just sliding into unconsciousness when the knot tying the rope to the beam somehow unravels. That is fate or divine intervention, I'm going to tell you. He says, I'm slammed hard to the concrete floor, rather the worse for wear. And apparently he being Springfield, has been dealing with depression for several decades. And he said, I want to have hope and know that the moment will pass. Springfield said in an exclusive interview with ABC News' Paula Ferris. He said also, I'm an example of the moment passing because I've been there a couple times and haven't, for want of a better phrase, pulled the trigger. Yikes. Okay. And then from late 1974 to early 1976, Springfield was also in, I saw this, I think, behind the scenes or somewhere on a show, in a romantic relationship with actress Linda Blair. Yes, The Exorcism. And she was like one that everyone loved. I mean, I know she was in a relationship also with Rick James too. So anyway, it began when she was 15, ruh-roh, under 18, and then he was 25 at the time. So a 10-year difference, but well, kind of, because she's under 18, but it was the 70s. And then in October 1984, Springfield married his girlfriend, Barbara Porter, at his family's church in Australia. How did they meet? Because who is Barbara Porter? They actually met several years earlier when Springfield was recording Working Class Dog, and she was working as the recording studio receptionist. Aha! They also have 2 sons, Liam, born in 1985, who was also in that sounds like the General Hospital reunion, their 50th, and Joshua Springthorpe, born in 1989. And then in 1985, when his first son was born, that's Liam, and after the release of his Tao album, Springfield took a break from his musical career to spend more time with his family and began to deal with the depression that has affected him since his adolescence. He is quoted here saying, in January 2018, he had said that he was also contemplating suicide in 2017. He says, "Last year I was close to it, really close to it," explained Springfield, and how he considered killing himself. "When Robin Williams and Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell and those guys, I didn't go, oh, that's terrible. I went, I get it. I get being that lost and dark. That's pretty heavy, but a lot of people are going through that, especially with the advent of COVID. It just has gotten worse, and I'm glad he's speaking out to let people know that they're not alone." All right, I told you to put a pin on it with his acting, so more on the acting gig. So in the late 1970s, I looked online. He has many early acting gigs, and here and there. And then one even says that he might have been in the beginning pilot of Battlestar Galactica, which I think I remember him as one of the pilots. But anyway, I digress. What got him in the map was in 1981, where, again, we talked about it earlier, he became a soap opera star in General Hospital. So this is what happened. He had signed a contract with RCA Records and already recorded the album Working Class Dog, which neither he nor his agent at the time had expected would do very well. That's why he thought, you know what, I'm going to take the soap role, because if this singing career doesn't work, I have a backup. Boy, did he not realize what was going to happen. So the song Jesse's Girl went to #1, and Springfield ended up both playing the role of Dr. Noah Drake from 1981 to 83, while at the same time going on tour with his band. So he's double successful. And because of his success, I remember that's why I wanted to start watching General Hospital, because I liked Rick Springfield. The show's ratings were boosted because of his singing career, and became the biggest show on TV for that summer. The fame from the show also boosted the sale of the songs, so it kind of begat. It helped each other out, right? Then in 1984, he made a full-length feature film titled Hard to Hold, and wrote the soundtrack for it. And I remember this because both my BFF Heidi and I wanted to see it, and we knew it was a rated, I think, R. It changed from PG to R. And we saw it at the time. It was a place called Washington Square Cinemas. It's no longer there, but that's where we saw it. And I think we had Heidi's mom buy us the tickets because we were under 18, and we were able to watch the movie. Just dropped us off. So what was it about? So Hard to Hold is a 1984 musical drama film directed by Larry Pierce, and was meant as a starring vehicle for Rick Springfield. They felt he was perfect. He had the good looks, he had a solid television acting resume, and of course his rock career was not doing so bad either. So let's see if he can break into films. It starred Springfield, a Janet, I think Albert, and a Patty Henson. And the feature film actually has a lot of his songs, which is included on the soundtrack. So I need to get that soundtrack. So what's the plot? He plays a James, goes by Jamie Roberts, and being a pop idol is used to having his way with women until he meets child psychologist Diana Lawson, played by Janet Janet, in a car accident. However, she never heard of him, doesn't swoon over him. So of course he's definitely attracted, because here's someone that doesn't know anything about him, doesn't really care about his stardom. He tries to win her affections, but it's also complicated by his ex-lover, who's Nikki Nides, which is played by Patty Henson, beautiful model, who ends up marrying, in real life, Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, and who remains a member of this band. So there's a lot of conflict there. He later recalled, quote unquote, "It was one of those guys that said," uses an old-time Hollywood voice, "we're going to make some money on this kid. And I thought the script was so awful that I threw it across the room. I remember physically throwing it across the room and saying, 'This is a piece of shit.' Then they offered me a lot of money, and I remember picking it up and saying, 'I can make this work,'" and he laughs. Which I didn't, because it was still a crappy movie, but I'd say my best in it, and I still make jokes about it, actually. That's probably the only time I'll say my ego got the better of me when I did the film. I said, "I can make this work." I love his transparency. Director Larry Pierce said, quote unquote, "Like everyone else, I was skeptical about using Rick, but he is a marvelous, talented, well-trained young man with a wonderful sense of comedy, and sexy as hell. Anyone who can make it through the soaps can make it through anything," agreed. Then, too, he has that thing that happens to people who've been up and down a few times. Pierce added that Springfield not only appeals to the youth, but to mature women, too. And he also has one of those rare, handsome, sexy men who doesn't put other men off. Agreed. I love that. Springfield also said the freedom of the movies after TV was like going from a wading pool to the ocean. I can't imagine. From the soaps to headlining your own movie, that's a big difference. And the female lead, Janet, was a former dancer. When she was offered the film, she says, "I thought it would be rated PG." This is where it gets interesting. Here we go. "After all, the majority of Springfield's fans were teenage girls. I was one of them. But the script plainly called for a nude love scene. Ruh-roh. I convinced myself it would be a matter of doing the scene under a sheet or something, But 2 or 3 days after we shot the scene, I realized there was no sheet and there would be no PG. Yeah, that was a pretty hot scene. In December of 1983, Springfield said, hopefully it'll be the only music movie I'll make because I want to branch out and stretch my wings. I guess you could say it was just a safer script than some of those I was given. I even looked at one script about a case of mistaken identity where a guy is locked up in a garage with a guy who thinks he's somebody else and is trying to kill him. So the music movie looked pretty good. The film had to be edited so it'd be rated PG rather than R because probably that nude scene now. And of course, he was smart. Springfield followed making the movie with a tour. All right. And then in December 2005, I mentioned earlier, he was asked by General Hospital to return to the show in his role as Dr. Noah Drake after 23-year absence. He ran through that in 2005 and did as they call a recurring guest star. Didn't get a full contract cast member, but he did until 2008, so got a good 3 years of that pay. And then he returned to General Hospital as Dr. Noah Drake in April 2013. He also starred in a fun show called Hot in Cleveland with Betty White. On that show, it was titled Everything Goes Better with Vampires. Okay. And then, like I mentioned earlier, in October 2017, he appeared as Pastor Charles with the American Horror Story Cult. And like I said, just a great mixture of quirky evilness. Music video. Have you seen it? It's amazing. First of all, I'm loving his skydiver jumpsuit thing with all the zippers. And I think he's wearing white Chuck Taylors. I think they look like it. But he can literally wear that outfit now in 2023 and look cool. So he definitely has a great style sense. And he had his perfect feathered hair. So that whole combo still works to today. But I don't understand are the scenes with the police cars along with the band. So they have flashing lights. There's no policeman in them, but that's where the band performs. I don't get that. So maybe it's just like, ooh, be careful. You're into stalkerish mode throughout the video because you'll see him in his black leather jacket kind of stalking his girlfriend because he wants to make sure, is she seeing that French dude or that continental dude? Maybe the flashing police lights signify you're getting to danger zone here of maybe her wanting a restraining order, so be careful. And the best line in the song is when he says, did you fall at first sight or did you need a shove? What a great line. But the even funnier scene is where we see his girlfriend. She's having supposed dinner with, we think, the French dude. And remember the French part. And so he's under the table rubbing against her leg. And she thinks it's a French dude. And she slaps him. And I think that's so funny. But did I mention French? I totally blacked out that there were French lyrics in the song. I don't even remember it in the song. And then it showed up when I was watching it on YouTube. So let me just tell you what the French words are. And I'm going to butcher it, so bear with me, but what they mean. So we're assuming when it's played in the music video, it's him talking, or the French continental dude talking to his girlfriend. So one of the lines is, fais l'amour avec moi, which means make love with me. And he's saying, what's he saying, baby? So that's Rick Springfield kind of like asking his girlfriend. Then the French guy is saying again, viens dormir mon amour, says, come to sleep, my love. So I'm assuming come sleep with me. And then he's, and then Rick Springfield says, I asked you not to talk to him. And the third French line is, je t'aime, donne-moi, ton conseil ce soir. And it says, I like you to give me your heart this night. And then, of course, Rick Springfield kind of does a repeat, like, I'm begging you. So, because I think during this time of the music video, you start seeing her little kitten heels slip off. And I'm like, uh-oh, you know what that means. So, interesting, lots of stuff. And I knew about the Dr. Noah Drake General Hospital. Did not know that he belonged to Zoot, which it soon became offspring to Little River Band, which has done quite well themselves. And then his music video with the French stuff in there, totally forgot. And how he, you know, just thinks that the Hard to Hold movie was funny and, you know, was part of his ego then. But I'm glad that he just is kind of just, you know, it is what it is. And I made money off of it, right? And yet the most important thing is his transparency with his fight with depression throughout his life. And it sounds like it's something that he'll have to deal with. And so I appreciate him being very, very vocal about that and being very transparent. So the misheard song lyric again is, you're seeing some slick talking mental dude, but it's really continental dude. If you have great suggestions like this misheard song lyric, send it to any of our sites like Instagram, Facebook, now X, formerly Twitter, or you can send me an email at misheard, that's MISSHEARD songs @gmail.com. Till then, keep singing those songs wrong. Bye.